Tonight, I'm very happy to speak to my old friend, Mr. Chris McDonald, the president of Hot Dogs Film Festival in Canada. How are you, Chris? Welcome.
Thank you, Sharif. Nice to see you. I'm well, thank you.
Thank you very much for joining this conversation about, what's going on inside the film industry, not only filmmaking, but as well the film festival circuit. Right now, being the head of Hot Docs, one of the leading film festival around the world, I want to ask you first, how did you receive the knowledge of COVID at the beginning of the year, while you were preparing for the this year's edition?
Good question. We didn't really start paying attention to COVID until, middle of February. We were in Berlin. And then I went to the Thessaloniki Documentary Festival the first week in March. And I got there a few days early to travel around and found out that it had been canceled. It was one of the first festivals. So within 2 weeks, maybe 10 days, we had decided we had to close our cinema, we had to postpone the festival, and we had to start thinking about how we were going to pivot to online programs and initiatives. We didn't want to be the first cinema. We actually have the first documentary cinema in the world, and it was doing extremely well. We were averaging over 700 people a day. And we didn't want to be the first cinema in Toronto to close, nor did we want to be the last, of course. Technically, I mean, we postponed the festival 6 weeks before our opening night. And it gave us enough time to cancel a lot of our contracts that we had with hotels and airlines and party venues and cinemas. And so it gave us time to honor those obligations or get out of them where possible. And then there were a lot of factors at play in terms of what we were going to do. The first thing we did was make cinema programming available to our 10,000 members. Hot Docs has 10,000 people in Toronto who are annual members who go to the cinema, go to the festival, etc. So we very much wanted to protect those partnerships. So we started offering free links. This was in April, free links for our members, and then slowly started to introduce online programming, lectures, and first run films. And that was up until the end of May, when we ran the festival online for 4 weeks. And now we're back to regular cinema programming. But there were a lot of factors. And for other festivals, I think it's important to realize that when you transition to an online festival, what you're doing is, I think, honoring those sponsorship partnerships with corporate as well as private sector and public sector, government funders. So by going online, you're offering them something. You're also respecting the films, I think, as best as you can, by giving them a platform. We had 80 world premieres, I believe, 70 or 80 world premieres. And by offering the content online, I'd say 80% of those filmmakers decided to play their film with us, do a Q&A with us, and reach as wide an audience as they possibly could.
Right now, what I can see, it's not a very easy decision, for a big festival like yours or Cannes Festival or Berlin, because you have sponsorship commitments, logistics, to take that decision. Other festivals prefer to cancel, of course, their edition, So tell me, while the festival was screening online?
It certainly was, and it took a long time because we had to build a new platform for our online programming, which obviously took a long time. We've been talking about having a digital cinema for 8 or 10 years and always thought it was too complicated and expensive. And we ended up doing it in about 5 weeks. So it's interesting how adaptable we can be when we need to be, when we have no choice. We had about 90,000 viewers for for the festival, which was online for 4 weeks. We would normally have had about 240, 250,000 viewers. So obviously that's a significant decrease. But it allowed our audience, people who had already purchased subscriptions or passes, it allowed them the opportunity to watch the number of films that they had purchased, which was very important. We also had to be very careful that it was as user-friendly an experience for the viewer as possible, that the privacy concerns that all the filmmakers and sales agents and distributors reinforced with us were looked after. We introduced, as you and I talked about earlier, we geo-blocked the films for Ontario. So Toronto is in Ontario, Canada, and we have provinces rather than states. So we geo-blocked it for our province. And we did that. It just seemed a simpler option to do that for all the films rather than negotiate film by film. Your film can go to all of Canada, your film can only go to Eastern Canada. That was a lot of work because we also had to organize conversations with 100 filmmakers, schedule Q&As with 100 filmmakers. There was a lot of things happening at the same time. So the other reason we decided to geo-block for Ontario was the fact that there are a couple more really wonderful documentary film festivals in Canada, and we didn't want to compete with them unnecessarily. It seemed like the wrong time to start, premiering films in a market. Hot Docs premiering films in a Vancouver when they have a great documentary festival themselves. So we wanted to respect our sister organizations as much as possible. And then certainly the again, talking about the user experience, a lot of we have a wide range of demographics, but I mean, a significant percentage of our audience are retired people, for instance, who aren't as adaptable to, the new interface of an online cinema, figuring out what's their member number and where do they put it in the system and what's a Zoom. And so there were a number of factors in play that we took into consideration. And I think we did a really exceptional job. The other thing we did, so there's kind of three things. There was the cinema and all of the programming that we do year round. There was the festival, the films that I talked about. And then there was the industry. So Hot Docs is a hybrid festival. We have 2,500 delegates from 65 countries who come to Hot Docs every year to Toronto. And we have some wonderful programs that help filmmakers get their work financed and sold. So we had to very quickly figure out how we were going to continue to deliver those programs. We might have 250 buyers who attend Hot Docs every year. It's a great opportunity for filmmakers to raise funds. So we put those programs online as much as we possibly could, and we saw our numbers grow in terms of buyers, and we're still tracking sales and the business that was done, but we're very, very proud of our colleagues in the industry department who were able to, in very short order, put everything online. So filmmakers were pitching projects. I think there were hundreds and hundreds of meetings that still took place online. Obviously not as ideal, but it was the only choice we had.
And right now, we are hearing that a little bit the world is opening bit by bit. I mean, traveling, hotels, restaurant right now. Tell me right now, what is the situation with COVID in Canada? It is getting better, the numbers are decreasing?
They are. It's flattened nicely. it's been, you know, we've had to wear masks for, people have been wearing masks for months. You now have to wear masks in stores and in public places. Our numbers are much better than the United States. That doesn't mean we can be complacent. I think people are concerned about flare-ups everywhere. So, you know, we're looking, as I mentioned, we have a cinema, 700 seats. We're not sure when we're going to reopen. There are a lot of factors in play, of course. Safety of our staff and our clients, customers is the top priority. So it's something we're watching. I can't imagine us being open before October 1st, maybe November 1st, and that might even be too ambitious. The Toronto Film Festival is scheduled for first week in September, and they're still planning on being in cinemas. They're only going to use 3 venues, I believe, this year, instead of, you know, dozens and dozens that they normally use. But currently their plan is with reduced capacity and physical distancing and online ticket purchasing. They're thinking that they can do a hybrid mount a hybrid festival. Who knows? I don't know if the city hasn't, I don't think, said anything about cinemas yet. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yes.
But you don't want to be the first. You don't want to be the first cinema to open.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be the last.
Yeah. So right now, because you already organized this edition a little bit late, tell me, what is your plans for next year so far? Did you start to think about it, you know, with all the staff, you know?
Certainly. Yeah. I mean, I think that online festivals are here to stay. I think that physical in-person festivals will continue, and it'll be a combination of the two, because, you know, I think if this is a very, this number's off the top of my head, but let's say, you know, 85%, if everything were normal, 85% of our audience would want to be in a cinema, but 15% would appreciate the opportunity to watch a film at home. And there are a lot of, you know, different reasons for that. You know, there might be accessibility. There might be reasons that prevent people from leaving their house to go to a cinema. It's just easier for them to watch at home. And so I think that that's something we learned. And I think that going forward, we'll see a combination of in-person and online festivals.
Yes.
But the priority will always be in person. I think we'll always lean towards that wherever possible.
Of course. You know, being like a documentary festival, you know, do you think like COVID will inspire many documentaries next year?
I do. I do. It's a pretty, I mean, tragedy aside, it's a pretty fascinating social experiment, or whatever it is we're going through right now. And it will be inspiration, I think, for a lot of unique stories. Think of all the family stories that, you know, so many documentaries are about personal family stories. Well, we've all just had to spend the last 4 or 5 months with our closest family or loved ones. And I can see that being a great source of material.
Yes, of course. And by the way, we were very happy last year to have you with us in Ismailia Festival as one of the jury members of the long documentary competition. Tell me, how was your trip before the festival? You went around Cairo, you know, before coming. How was it for you?
I went to Alexandria.
Yeah.
I've been to Egypt 3 times. I love it. It's a wonderful country, and it's my first time to Alexandria, so that was very special. And Ismailia was very unforgettable in a wonderful way as well. And as was the festival, and all of you and your colleagues' hospitality was.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Yes, I hope yes, we can have you another time with us next time, you know, in Ismailia or another Egyptian festival. And of course, I'm very happy that you joined me for this conversation. And I wish you all the best, for the Canadian people, and also for you and your colleagues on hot dogs and at the theater. I know it's an ongoing, screening all along the year beside the festival time. And keep us posted about the preparation. We should support you, with our hearts and soul for a successful next editions.